I'm not gonna lie, Sacred Stones taught me so much about life. Like, insanely. I was like half raised by Sacred Stones. Budgeting, using items in a savvy way, just strategically placing people so their strengths and weaknesses would support each other. I've been a manager several times over for teams of various sizes, and this was all thanks to the fact that I have this sort of framework of thought from like middle school. Though I would say that one of my most formative moments from this game is from like Garrick and Tethys. Like, look at this. I'm writing fanfic for Garrick Tethys and Innies. So this was like OG poly ship for me. They're a straight couple and regard each other as equals, which, like, being Demi and not realizing or even having words for it until I was in college. I mean, I always was Demi, but I didn't know until college. And I didn't realize that a lot of my issues with the way hetero romances were depicted was because it was always this act of, like, violence and conquest and subjugation. It's, even just the woman taking the man's name. It's like, well, she belongs to him now, but belonged to her dad before. It was just this weird ownership and possession at the very foundation of how hetero romances were set up. And you have, get in the kitchen, and she makes less, and she's gotta take care of the kids. She comes home with fast food, and she's a lazy mom. Dad comes home with fast food, and he's a fun dad. So, like, there was this horrible dynamic that I just saw perpetuated all across the board, and Garrick and Tethys were the first straight couple that I saw in my memory that actually respected each other. That she could stand up for herself and tell him off if necessary, and that was normal. It was part of their dynamic. And she could do things like, when she had Garrick and Innies near her in the first scene where they're all together, she's like, ugh, if you could stop being such men for a second. And it's like, I don't know, delightful and charming for me that she was able to be honest like that. So I had a lot of great moments in this game, and I should say this is the first couple I encountered like that in fiction. A lot of the depictions for fiction heterosexual romances were just bad. In the 90s, and probably now. But you also had, like, classic things like Seth with Erika. That's one of the possible romance options. It's basic stuff, but I was like, okay, but I'm not saying no to this trope. You've got Joshua, the runaway prince, with his gorgeous mom. I just like, why this nation comes up with the prettiest people. Then you have Myrrh and the tragedy of her whole life. So if you want me to focus, you can comment with something.